Welcome to Tip TV Finance. I'm joined here by Rowen Squibb, who is Managing Director of Y Media. And the big question is, what is Y Media, Rowen?
We are a design and marketing agency with offices in London, Peterborough and Manchester. We build websites, develop branding, but our kind of USP, I suppose, is the fact that we act as the marketing department for around 50 businesses. So rather than them having their own marketing and digital people, they use Y Media.
So you're an outsourcer, really, in that way?
I think it's economically viable for businesses to have a team of people that are keeping up with changes and trends and new codes. And having them in-house, it can be a bit boring for these businesses. So by outsourcing it, if you like, or outsourcing the agency, it just produces better results.
And isn't one of the things that if you are a busy business, let's say, one of the things you can't really do on a minute-to-minute basis is social media. But that's become one of the biggest drivers and the biggest features of making money or trying to make money these days.
There isn't a single business that isn't a media owner now. You know, the newspapers don't have the clout that they had, and I don't know about yourself, I don't particularly use yellow pages that often anymore. So all businesses obviously have to take note of it, and just depending on their size and scale, it's what makes sense to manage those tools, and which tool is important. Is Snapchat important, for example, or is Instagram important? Is Facebook? Without going into detail on each of the platforms, but it's what's relevant to those businesses, and particularly for business-to-business transactions, 94% of them now are done through Google. You know, people will search for companies through Google, obviously, as we all do. So it's a massive part of any business that's trying to be progressive.
Is the other thing that if you Google a business or a person, you see they've got just 3 entries on Google on one page, and they have 8 followers on Twitter. You just think, well, do I really want to do business with these people? You want to see lots of action, lots of activities, lots of events, and that gives the credibility to the business.
It's a modern habit, isn't it? We quantify a business by the way in which it presents itself. I suppose it's a bit like having a restaurant that's got no one in there. If it's got no one in there, for some reason we don't like to eat there. I'm not saying the food's not good, but for some reason we don't. And those social media channels have a subconscious behaviour pattern behind them that says if this business is active and proactive, they're probably going to be active and proactive when they work with me, so adds value.
And do you think that people are appreciating what your company does, what Y Media does? Because, I can immediately imagine that anybody over, let's say, 40 or 50 will think, well, what is this media stuff? What is this social media stuff? Who cares?
Very much. That age demographic you're talking about is kind of still very distant from that means of communication. But to be fair, what we find is, even senior level executives or business owners will hand it to us. We submit a monthly report that breaks down, what the tone of the business, who's showing interest. And we do not lose clients. Over 10 years of trading now, we literally, have lost 3 clients over that whole period. So, we're very lucky that people do start to see the value when you educate them. But, it's not viable for them to be consumed with it anyway. It would be a misplaced of resources.
Right. Your company was originally a Hong Kong company. Is that the area of expansion, the Far East?
Well, interestingly, we were formed originally in Hong Kong, and that company has, this year, been purchased by PricewaterhouseCoopers. So it's interesting that accountancy firms are purchasing these types of business. That shows you what an important element this side of the business is when you see big. Well, I think they're the world's biggest accountancy firm taking ownership of businesses like that. We're very focused on the UK. The UK. Manchester's a new venture for us. Peterborough's also quite an established office for us. But London is very buoyant, and we're hoping to double in size over the next 12 months, and we're seeing that kind of growth come in because.
Right. I wanted to ask you about Brexit, but probably not the traditional question about that. People outside the UK, are they sort of looking at us and thinking, what did they do in June? What was did they actually understand what happened?
Well, I was in the US actually when those results came through, and I have to say, every American I spoke to just thought that we were complete fools. I have to also say that within our own business, we were quite pro-Remain. It's very difficult when you see a buoyant market. Why would you rock the boat? personally, just as a personal view, moving on from that now, although I think people abroad are still raising flags saying, why did you make that decision? I think it's possibly now, I'm a bit of a turncoat, because I think it was probably the right decision in many ways. We, as ourselves, dealing with businesses in lots of different sectors, and when we've seen companies investing in medical science come into the UK, and we've been seeing pension funds looking at how they could increase their investments into the UK. Actually, I think that we've probably been quite wise distancing ourselves from some of the problems that are going on in Europe. I mean, this Italian bank question, will it go away? I mean,
The other thing that, in fact, is one of those cliches, there's no such thing as bad publicity. And in fact, that campaign was a great marketing and advertising campaign for the UK, because everybody in the world was looking at the UK.
It's put us to the forefront of everyone's mind, isn't it? I mean, every news channel throughout the world is discussing this point, and I agree. I think it's. I mean, we're seeing international traffic coming through to lots of our clients' websites increase across the board. So it has been a bit of a marketing coup. I mean, obviously, I think in these terms, but yeah, it's been a good thing, I think.
Right. Well, the other influence on business in the recent past and still going on is Philip Green and the whole BHS debacle. Do you think that it's telling us something, or he's telling us something about how business works these days, the acceptable or the unacceptable face of capitalism, and how we go forward?
I think that, I think the Philip Green situation is one situation. I think there's a number of businesses out there that have, international businesses, in terms of how they arrange themselves. I mean, I think my understanding is that 9 out of 10 jobs have been created by the SME market, small independent businesses, whereas 1 in 10 has been created by corporates. I mean, I think these businesses have shot themselves in the foot. I mean, Philip Green's case, particularly, I notice he's trying to play on the fact that his pension fund deficit happened because of the banking crisis, and woe is him. But I mean, it's not going to wash. I mean, he is an embarrassment to the business community, really, and the business community has to go that little bit further, I think, to try and make sure that it shows a positive light in terms of businesses do good things. They create opportunity for people. They treat people well, and they consider them, rather than plunging hundreds of millions of pounds into individuals' pockets with little or no care for 22,000 hard-working individuals that have given their life to a business. It's a problem, isn't it? It's not good.
Right. Well, I suppose I have a rather unique views on this matter, but at least one of them would be that if it weren't for Philip Green, BHS would have gone bust 10 years before. So he did actually give those people an extra time and employment. The other point is that probably given demographics with pensions, it's going to be almost impossible for companies to be able to bankroll somebody's pension from the age of 65 to 100 when they've only been working for maybe 20 or 30 years. The numbers will never add up. So we have to change the system.
Yeah, no, I fully appreciate that. And funnily enough, it's, there's obviously going to be detail in there that means that you can sway an argument. But the fundamental picture is you have many, many hard-working people who have lost their job. Many of them would have spent their lives there. And it does feel, I mean, the chap that was, who purchased that business was quite clearly in no way or shape capable. And he sits on a large yacht, sitting in, I mean, it does not do the business community any favours. And I think that, I mean, even at the Conservative Party conference last week, there's a lot of anti-business rhetoric that's coming through, and we've also seen it with Sports Direct. I mean, what are £50 notes coming out? I mean, there does have to be some sort of balance between business owners and the people that work in those businesses.
So we need to become as human for big businesses as small businesses already are.
Yeah,
maybe some of that culture should seep upwards.
There needs to be a changed landscape. We cannot go on as we have gone on. I mean, thankfully, in my view, unions have died in this country. We're both old enough to remember what a disastrous situation it was. And actually, my colleagues that use Southern Rail right now, I'm sure will testify to how these unions, are not a good way of going about things. But there does need to be some sort of way in which, businesses make a decision. They almost govern themselves in terms of how they treat human beings that work for them, how their salaries are increased, how their conditions improve. I mean, there's a lot of talk about productivity. And I think there was another comment from the government about business owners play golf. I wish I could get time to play golf even at the weekend. It's a bit unfair in terms of where this rhetoric is coming from, but a few bad apples are tainting the bowl, aren't they, I think?
Well, we'll have to hope there are no more bad apples. Rowen Squibb, Managing Director of Wide Media, thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
We'll be back after the break.